Good morning and welcome to the United National Conference press conference this Sunday, January the 18th, 2026. We are here at the United National Congress headquarters, which is where the policy of the government of Trinidad and Tobago has been formulated. We are a national party open to all, and our members are dedicated to making sure that everybody wins. Today we have presenting the MP for Sangre Grande, Minister Wayne Sturge, Minister in the Minister of Defense and also Minister in the Ministry of Homeland Security. We also have presenting MP Michelle Benjamin. She's the MP for Moruga Tableland, and she is the Minister for Culture and Community Development. Also presenting is Mr. Peter Kanhai. He is the chairman of the National Carnival Commission. So today we begin our press conference with Minister Wayne Sturge. So I will invite him to the podium at present. Minister.
Good morning, members of the media and those following on social media. As we prepare to exit the existing state of emergency, which was first declared in July last year and which comes to an end at the end of this month, the government, realizing the tremendous gains made, more particularly the intelligence gathered during the last few months, and acted in the interest of national security, and fully cognizant of its responsibility to the silent majority of law-abiding citizens of this country, the government has taken a decision to enact into law, as part of its crime-fighting arsenal, what is being loosely referred to as the Zones of Special Operations Bill, or ZOSO. The bill was debated in the House on Friday and passed on Saturday morning. The bill requires a 3/5 majority to become law, and on Friday the government had the requisite majority in the House. All PNM MPs present voted against the bill, with the MPs for Trinity, Maloney and Laventille East both absent. The bill will be debated in the Senate on Tuesday in earnest and will pass with the support of 4 of the 9 presidential senators. At least one member of the House on Friday made it clear that the opposition PNM will lobby the president's senators to not lend the required support. Before I get into the tenets of the bill, it would be remiss of me to not point out that the existing state of emergency, which comes to an end on January 31st, was the least intrusive state of emergency on record and affected only a select few individuals who the intelligence shows are the ones responsible for a substantial percentage of the shootings and murders which have plagued this country over the last decade. So let me begin by telling you that the ZOSO bill is not a state of emergency and does not have the sweeping powers of a state of emergency. The bill cannot replace a state of emergency, as it is quite clearly set out in the bill that the entire country cannot be declared a zone. Just like the SOE, this bill seeks to allow the silent majority of law-abiding citizens to continue with the enjoyment of their constitutional rights, and it seeks to target only those persons who engage in the type of activities set out in the bill, and who, over the last 10 years, have ensured that the silent majority of citizens have not enjoyed to the fullest their constitutional rights. The provisions of the bill allow for the Prime Minister sitting in the National Security Council with the Commissioner of Police and Chief of Defense Staff to declare a defined geographical area to be a zone of special operations for a maximum of 180 days. In reality, we can safely say that this 180 days would be the absolute outside limit and only in the most extreme cases. There are provisions in the bill which allow for areas within the zone to be the subject of a cordon for a maximum of 24 hours and for a curfew to be imposed within the cordon for a maximum of 72 hours. I repeat, the cordon and the curfew, exists within the cordon and not the entirety of the zone declared. Contrary to the patent nonsense being published by some PNM affiliated social media bloggers, not all persons within the zone or the cordon would be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, or search of their persons or property. Where cordons and curfews are imposed, operations will be surgical and timely and would target only those persons and premises who are the subject of what we call in law reasonable suspicion, which is a safeguard. Before I go a bit deeper into the clauses of the bill, I wish to deal frontally with a narrative of the PNM mindbenders and their hidden agendas, if I'm to borrow from David Rudder. There was a false and misleading narrative attempted during the debate in the House, suggesting that the Prime Minister, acting on her own, could declare PNM areas to be subject to be zones of special operations, with the loudly implicit suggestion that zones could be declared to target a particular race. The bill makes it clear that the declaration is made by the Prime Minister as head of the National Security Council after meeting and consulting with the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff. So as I did in the debate, let me share with you the makeup of the National Security Council. Apart from the Honorable Prime Minister, the Minister of Justice, Devish Maharaj, and the Legal Affairs Minister, Saddam Hussain, the National Security Council includes the Attorney General, a proud black man, the Minister of Homeland Security, a proud black man, the Minister of Works, a proud black woman, and myself, the Commissioner of Police, who sits and based on whose recommendations the National Security Council would act, is a man of African descent, and a proud one, and an effective one. The Chief of Defense Staff, the Commanding Officer of the Coast Guard, the Commanding Officer of the Air Guard, the Commanding Officer of the Regiment, are all of African descent. Likewise, the upper echelons of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. So the destructive narrative which they tried with the Stand Your Ground bill and which they continue to advance is a hollow one. Black and brown people are the majority in this country. This is not West Virginia, Kentucky, Mississippi. So the very makeup of the National Security Council itself should put to rest the divisive narratives that continue to be peddled. This attempt by the opposition was obviously the only fig leaf they could find to hide the demonstrable shame that became self-evident during their contributions. It is my hope that going forward they abandon the playing of the race card. Permit me now to delve a bit deeper into the clauses of the bill in the hope that I can demystify machinations and to allay the public of any fears created by the scare tactics used by the opposition and their bloggers. Now, it is passing strange that even the MP for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, former Prime Minister Young, accepted during debate that decisions made by the National Security Council would be subject to judicial review, and this also qualifies as a safeguard. So let's deal with the issue of arrest without warrants. The power of arrest without warrant already exists both in statute and at common law. The provisions dealing with arrest and detention has 4 safeguards in this bill. Firstly, the arrest is based on reasonable suspicion. It is not arbitrary. And reasonable suspicion would mainly be driven by intelligence. The provisions dealing with arrest and detention has 4 safeguards, as I said. Reasonable suspicion is one. Second one is that the bill provides that a person arrested and detained must be brought before a court promptly. The bill further imposes a burden on designated First Division police officers to ensure compliance with time limits relative to arrest and detention, and to ensure that the person detained is brought before the court in compliance with the Act. Thirdly, the court, in order to continue with the detention of the person detained, must be satisfied that his detention is justifiable on the basis of evidence-based reasonableness and necessity. If the police cannot satisfy the court, then the person detained must be released. That is a safeguard. This is very different to what obtains during an SOE, where a tribunal can make a similar finding and recommendation, and the minister can ignore the recommendation of the SOE tribunal. So this bill provides greater protectional safeguards. It observes due process and provides guaranteed access to the courts and for obedience to the orders of the court. Fourthly, if the magistrate does not order the release of the person detained, the bill makes provisions for a judge in chambers as a court of superior record to hear from the police why continued detention should be justified and is necessary. These provisions exist parallel with the ordinary processes of the criminal justice system where charges are laid. This is obviously different to what obtains during a state of emergency, in the sense that you have access to the courts in proceedings that are analogous to habeas corpus proceedings, which you do not enjoy during a state of emergency. Let's deal with search without warrant. With respect to the power to search without the need for a warrant, although the bill makes allowances to execute a search without a warrant, that does not mean of necessity that all searches in identified zones would be done without search warrants. The bill simply gives the power to conduct searches without warrants, and obviously this would be where the exigencies require this to be so. In order to search without a warrant, there is still the safeguard at common law that such searches must be conducted on the basis of reasonable suspicion, and this is contained in the bill. Reasonable suspicion and not arbitrariness or the whim and fancy of the officer in charge, so that it is not arbitrary and there remains recourse to the common law courts where there is abuse. The inclusion of this power to search without a warrant is one that is needed at times when there is the need to act immediately to secure evidence. The bill also provides for applications to be made before a magistrate for the return of items seized to citizens, and such items can be ordered returned if the police cannot justify retention of the items seized. The powers of arrest without warrant and search and seizure of property without warrant are 2 of the 4 provisions of the bill which has the potential to interfere with enshrined rights. But they are, in essence, they do set out a legitimate aim and are justifiable. And the other 2 would be the cordon and the curfew, which has the potential to limit freedom of movement of a select few persons for 24 hours and 72 hours respectively. All of these potential incursions set out to achieve legitimate aims, and only where necessary and only where there is justification. based on reasonable suspicion and necessity. The arguments advanced, which suggest that the president should somehow be involved in the declarations and decision-making processes in this bill, are both spurious and disingenuous. Even in a state of emergency, when the president acts on the advice of the Prime Minister as head of cabinet and more particularly as head of the National Security Council and not in her own deliberate way and not on her own motion. Now, this bill sets out twin objectives, and I have dealt with the first part. So let me now deal with the other part. We intend to wrest control of the designated areas from the criminal gangs. We will then seek to move on to achieving the other objectives of the bill. We all know that the root causes of crime cannot be addressed through legislation. The root causes of crime are addressed through equality of opportunity in education, social interventions, social behavioral change, and other such initiatives which are designed to provide equality of opportunity and social justice so that those born and raised in these communities which face serious endemic socio-economic challenges are not disadvantaged by their station in life, but are as far as possible placed on equal footing so that they can succeed in spite of these challenges. The effect of these measures have a positive impact in the long term. Now, many communities in this country have been left behind because the previous government abdicated its responsibility to the most vulnerable communities, choosing instead to leave them vulnerable and dependent so that they can be exploited for political gain. This bill seeks to deal with the proximal causes of violent crime. Firstly, by assisting with the removal of guns and ammunition from vulnerable communities. Secondly, by the removal of the fiscal incentives in crime, which provide gangs with the ability to further fund their criminal networks and further fund them by using drug trafficking and human trafficking. Thirdly, by depriving the criminal networks of human resources through disrupting and dismantling criminal gangs who have been empowered through make-work programs and state contracts and who use their state-sponsored financial gain to prey upon the vulnerable. And in that vein, I would ask that you read carefully a certain article in the Guardian Media Investigations desk today, dealing with someone who received over 500 million in contracts over 10 years, someone who is a member of parliament. So we move on. Fourthly, the bill makes provision for a social transformation committee to provide resources so as to enable vulnerable persons to enjoy a meaningful and sustainable existence through assistance provided by state agencies to help them forward, as opposed to perpetuating dependency and coerced loyalty obtained by gang leaders through fear. The literature shows that young persons gravitate to criminal gangs because they feel isolated by wider society, and in gangs they enjoy a sense of belonging where they are able to feel that they are accepted and respected in their own communities, and they are made to feel as if they belong and are a part of something meaningful. This need for belonging is exploited and eventually leads to anti-social behaviors such as drug use, wanton lasciviousness, and perpetuates an endless cycle of violence, leading in so many instances to lengthy jail terms and, in many cases, death. Lives cut short. This government, shortly after coming into office, took the bold step to get rid of make-work programs, URP in particular, which allowed the criminal gangs to determine who worked, who earned a living, and what percentage of income earned would actually be received by the persons who worked. European state contracts over the last 25 years was a source of guaranteed government income for the criminal gangs, empowering them to exercise control over entire communities. When a government inadvertently or deliberately funds gangs through URP and state contracts, it cedes power to those who they have rebranded as community leaders and given legitimacy, and as such empowered them to the point where the rule of law was surrendered. And that is why the PNM in government has lost control over the last 10 years. This bill seeks to empower us to take back control of every inch of our country and to reverse the decline. It is our hope that the government is given that opportunity on Tuesday. Now, let me close by making reference to two short points. There was a time, I think it was 2017 or 2018, when there were daily killings in Tunapuna. I don't know if you recall that. There was rampant gang warfare. And informally and without the cover of law, the Joint Army and Police Patrol went in to that community, that particular part of Tunapuna, and operated what was a zone of special operations. And within a few days, all of the killings ended. Faris al-Rawi, realizing the effect of that sort of measure, decided to bring a bill to the cabinet in the hope that it would reach to the parliament. That much was revealed in the parliament on Friday. I think it was revealed by Kareem Marcel. So that the PNM realized the informal efficacy of zones of special operations, but they decided nonetheless that they would not bring it to the parliament because, in their view, it would target their own supporters who continue to live in fear, their own supporters who are in self-imposed curfews, their own supporters who are subjected to a limit on the freedom of movement because, as you know, 6 can't go to where 7 is, and so on. Right in the BTAM, 1 street can't go into the next street, and so on. So Faris al-Rawi attempted to bring zones of special operations and to bring it under the cover of law. It was not. We do not intend to act in that way. We intend to bring zones of special operations under the cover of law. Lastly, to demystify a point which I see is being made on social media, which suggests that the entire zone, declared zone, would be subject to curfew and cordon. That obviously is impracticable and not feasible for manpower reasons. The whole point is that within the zone, there would be targeted operations, and when there is a targeted operation, it would not be a whole 2-mile radius. It would be a targeted operation, perhaps in a small zone, a street or two, where there would be a cordon and where there would be a curfew. The cordon would be for a maximum of 24 hours according to the bill. If operations go smoothly, it can be much less, and we envisage it would be. The curfew would be a maximum of 72 hours. That's the outside limit. Of course, since it is targeted and surgical, once the operations go as we expect them to go, and the guns and the gang leaders are removed, then there's no need for a curfew. The curfew can be suspended or removed entirely. So at the end of, I understand my colleague Michelle Benjamin is here, Minister of Community Development and Culture, and the chairman of the National Carnival Commission. So I am prepared to entertain whatever questions you may have at the end of their contributions. Sorry? Yeah.
Right. I'll call it. Thank you, Minister Sturge. That was very useful because there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of lies going on. And these are the facts from the minister himself. Thank you very much. I'd like to now introduce the MP for Maruga Tableland, the Minister of Culture and Community Development, MP Michelle Benjamin. She's just getting ready to come to the podium. I will call Mr. Peter Kanhai to the. Oh, both of the. Sorry. Mr. Peter Kanhai will be joining MP Benjamin at the podium. He is the chair of the National Carnival Commission. So.
Sorry.
Good morning, all. So, I'd like to say a special good morning, of course, to the members of the media present here, to my colleagues, and, of course, to you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, I stand before you proud. Proud to, of course, announce that Carnival is here, it is happening, and is, of course, going to be the greatest show we know it to be on the face of the earth. Carnival product in Trinidad and Tobago has been elevated, expanded, and energized. From Flavor Village to Welcome to the Gael, to Panyards, Mascoms, communities, villages, and of course, town centers. Culture is no longer locked in Port of Spain. Culture is back where it belongs, with the people. This government made a deliberate choice not to concentrate in one area, not to keep culture gated, but of course, to expand it. Not to treat Carnival like a private party, but to spread opportunity, to spread activity, and to spread economic benefits across the entire country. And that is expanded. That is expanded by every CAL flight coming to Trinidad and Tobago is being reported full. That is expanded. If you're trying to book a hotel, there is no booking to be made at this time. Trinidad and Tobago, our Carnival product, has increased, has expanded. Flavor Village has become more than an event. It is now a national platform for food entrepreneurs, creative workers, performers, and young people trying to make an honest living. From their home, from their talent, they can find a space at Flavor. Welcome to the Gael. This was brought back and where it went into different communities, starting off in Maruga, then it went to Debe. Last night, it was in Tunapuna. Next week, it will be in Miaro. This is not just one show in one space. Again, it is happening throughout the country of Trinidad and Tobago. We are here this morning to report to you that the Carnival product has improved and it continues to do so under the guidance of the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa and, of course, the Ministry of Culture and Community Development and NCC. The Flavor Village was an addition brought because we listened to you. There was a cry for more spaces for our culture practitioners from our artists, and that space was built just to accommodate this. But the rest of the time, you would hear of budget cuts coming from the administration. They treated Carnival as a forgotten, and our culture as a forgotten afterthought, only to now find their voice, to say that we are not speaking about the Carnival product. We are not shrinking Carnival, we have expanded it. And that will be seen every night when you visit the Flavor Village. From Friday, there were reports that the Cupid Village was almost closed because of the numbers that was being reported. But thankfully, it remained open. This just goes to show that the product is oversubscribed every night. I would now like to report to you about the other preparations. The preparations for Carnival, the infrastructural works is on its way. Our main stage at the Queen's Park Savannah is completed, as we prepare to host the National Junior Panorama Finals there today. The North Stand is 85% completed. And more importantly, through improved planning, procurement, and coordination, NCC achieved efficiencies, resulting in a reduction in the construction costs. And I want to emphasize, reduced spending did not reduce the quality. It only simply reflects better management and better value for money. My brothers and sisters, locked on this live, I want to inform you that you would see newspaper articles about the sanitation and with regards to the preparedness of the city. I want to let you know that public health and sanitation are also a major priority. My ministry met with the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government alongside with the mayor. And also, we are putting things in place where another stakeholder meeting is being scheduled this week. So while persons are making claim that preparations are not being made with regards to the cleanliness of these spaces, I want to tell you that that is not so. We have done what is necessary to ensure that our Carnival product is ready. I want you to rest assured that we have all systems go. You would hear claims in the public spaces with regards to our regional Carnival product. This, I want to tell you, all systems are set. When it comes to regional Carnival, funding would be released in a timely manner. That process is starting as early as this Wednesday. Talks and the regional Carnival coordinators, they are meeting with the different regional Carnival bodies throughout the country. We are ready to deliver this product to you. As we deliver Carnival 2026, the ministry is ensuring that all Carnival-related entities remain and operate to the highest standards of accountability and transparency. Funding is being disbursed in structured tranches to the respective agencies. In keeping with this commitment, the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Calypsonians Association is expected to receive funding in the tune of over $15 million throughout this course of the Carnival period. And that goes to Trinidad that is set to receive over $20 million throughout this Carnival period. These are not strange figures. These are figures that are usually given throughout the Carnival period. There are a lot of claims that this government does not like PAN, this government does not fund PAN. I would like that to stop. This government has honored all obligations and we have increased all obligations. Carnival is also the people business. And one thing that we are making sure is that the money does not go in places that it does not belong, but it goes in the hands of the people, in the hands of the artists. And with that being said, I want to tell you, as minister, I am mindful of the need to maintain the stage for the future, while also recognizing the well-being of those who have given their lives to the art form. And this does not only remain with this artist that I'm going to mention here this morning, but this artist is known and dear to all of us. I want to say that Calypsonian Baron, he's undergoing some medical challenges. And with that being said, I want to say something here this morning. Moving forward, a restructured NCC will ensure that stakeholder organizations put proper measures in place for member protection. That is something that NCC has to take serious. Not just setting the stage, but taking care of the artists. And a press release would be released as to what NCC and the ministry and the stakeholder TUCO put in place with regards to Baron. That would be released today because we have to stand firm behind persons that would have helped us carry the culture forward. We cannot forget these artisans. I want to tell you that with regards to our Carnival product, everything is set and everything is ready for the main stage. I now pass you over to my chairman that will further elaborate on everything with regards to Carnival and what is in store with regards to NCC.
Good morning all, and thank you, Minister. So as the minister have enunciated, all plans for Carnival 2026 are in full train. In fact, Carnival is no longer coming. Carnival is here. There have been events taking place with Carnival related since before Christmas. There are competitions that have been completed already. As recent as last Saturday, the single pan steel band finals would have completed in Skinner Park. Before that, the small band finals in Skinner Park, and before that, the single pan finals was completed before the start of the new year. We are about to embark within the next week on the preliminary rounds of the national stick fighting program. That will be on the 30th, and it will be in Mayaro and continue till we get all the way down to the finals. What we have had happening was a new product called Welcome to the Gael that has so far had 3 installments. The last one last night at Constantine Park in Tonapuna, and that too was very well attended. There were thousands of people there in Constantine Park last night. With respect to what's happening at the Queen's Park Savannah, which is usually called Carnival City, as Minister would have said, today at 1 p.m., the first event on the big Savannah stage will take place. That's the Junior Panorama that will commence at 1 o'clock today. The North Stand, Minister, I think it's a little more than 85%. The North Stand is due to be handed over by the contractors on the 25th of January. The board and myself would have, last Wednesday afternoon, made a tour on the stage and took an inspection of the North Stand, which is well on stream and will be in place. The downtown stand will soon be awarded, so that construction will commence, and that will be up well in time for Carnival 2026. All other venues are currently in play, and construction will start as they are required for these venues. One of the things that we are not doing this Carnival is that we are not putting up infrastructure in venues long before they are required to be put down. So when people may not see certain things happening, it's not because it's not happening, it's because we have structured the timeline for when certain infrastructure around the city and around the country will go down. But it will all be done in time for whatever events are to take place in these venues. Right? Construction of the main stage in Skinner Park for Calypso Fiesta has begun, and that will be ready in time for Calypso Fiesta. Also on that stage will be the Chutney Soca Monarch and the schools soca competition and so on in San Fernando. So all these things are taking place. And all these things are taking place, as the minister indicated, at better negotiated prices. So for example, the big stage in the Savannah and the North Stand, the same contractor that put it up in 2025 and previously are the contractors that have put up the stage and that are putting up the North Stand. And the prices that we are paying for the exact same product
40% less.
is 40 to 45% less than it was in 2025, using the same contractors through the procurement process. Right? And that is the modus operandi of the NCC and the board of the NCC, that we get value for the taxpayers' dollars that are invested into the Carnival product. Right? I want to let you all know that the 2 villages, the John Cupid village, which is now located in the area commonly known as the Greens, which is west of the North Stand, that village is oversubscribed. In fact, on Friday night, the police had to briefly take control of the gate in order to have proper crowd control. It was reopened within 10 minutes, and it was oversubscribed, and it has been oversubscribed every night. Fire services have been telling us that at the Flavor Village, the throughput of people on any given day in the Flavor Village is between 4,000 and 5,000 people. But most importantly, the Flavor Village was also developed to assist the micro business people that operate in and around the Carnival space, the vendors. And if you speak with any of the vendors, be they the craft vendors or the food vendors that are operating in that space, they will tell you that within the first week of the opening of Flavor Village by the Honorable Prime Minister, these vendors will tell you that they have already made more money in 1 week than they made in the entire season of Carnival 2025. Many of them are selling out by 10 o'clock in the night, and they have to continue ramping up their production so that they are benefiting from the initiatives of the ministry and the NCC and the government in this Carnival thing. I have messages and emails and so on from all kinds of people here in Trinidad and outside of Trinidad asking whether the Flavor Village space is going to be remain all year round. That is something we may well consider, because we commonly hear all during the year people say, when visitors come to this country, where do you take them to get a taste of Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, which is the best carnival in the world? So we will also look at creating such an opportunity on a year-round basis. We will talk with the Ministry of Culture and Community Development, we will speak with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we will speak with the Ministry of Trade and Tourism to develop that. But we can almost use the Flavor Village as a pilot program for that. So I want to assure you that everything as it relates to Carnival 2026 is in full swing, and we have artists that are enthusiastic about performing in both the John Cupid Village and the Flavor Village. Right. And in fact, on the 22nd, next week, Thursday, Ms. Patrice Roberts have agreed to partner with the NCC, and she will be putting on a free concert at the Flavor Village. So I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago, you should not miss that concert, but you should come early. You should come very early, because we expect that it's going to be a mammoth crowd down there. We will take steps to ensure that everybody inside and outside the Flavor Village have an opportunity to see and hear the concert. There are plans for other similar concerts at the John Cupid Village. I know there's a chutney and soca night that will include the band Trinidad. I know that there's going to be a rhythm and steel night, and so on. And we have other artists that are in talks with us at the NCC about them also doing something similar to Patrice Roberts. I want to compliment Patrice Roberts for having taken that decision. And I think she did that because she is so impressed with both the venues. So having said that, I also want to compliment the hard-working people at the National Carnival Commission, those at the head office and those on the ground in the Savannah and at Skinner Park and other places. And I thank the ministry and the minister for her guidance.
Thank you, Minister and Chairman Peter Kanhai. So, as you can see, Carnival has started, and the plans and programs have been a success already. So right now, the presentations are over, and we have members of the media here. So we'd like to open up the floor to questions. I'd ask you to please list your media house before your name and the media house before your question, and the floor is yours.
Morning, Jen Slovin, Guardian Media. My first set of questions is for Ms. Benjamin and possibly Mr. Kanhai.
Yes?
Every year we have had an issue with noise at the greens for pan semis, and there have even been calls for that to be completely removed, if not restructured. what are the plans for the Greens for this carnival?
Right. As you would have seen in the build-up of the months of the weeks coming to the carnival, the cabinet and the prime minister have taken certain stance with regards to noise, and NCC was instructed to put a committee in place. That committee is in place, and an engineer with regards to how we position the instruments, the speakers, all of that is being taken into consideration. Of course, it is a work in progress and is something that we would continue to improve as we go.
Well, the main question is, would it be happening this year?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned the 15 million for Tuco, 20 million thereabouts for Trinidad. Will we see a pricing structure change or increase, decrease in prize monies?
There is no decrease, and the figure stated is an average. What is on the books, PAN would have received 30 million. They would receive that or more. One thing I've always stated every time I've taken a podium, this UNC administration is an administration that would have given the most to culture when it comes to allocation. We have never decreased, but always increased the allocations and the prizes. Increase in prizes is not in the books with regards to this year, but I could tell you we'll be maintaining all.
Okay. Now, in your speech, if I could call it that, you mentioned that Carnival has expanded, it has increased. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that in terms of figures and dollars and cents, if you can? Because bookings or hotels being booked out is more or less the norm for this period. So apart from that normal activity, what else can you say is being used to measure the increase?
I would say with regards to feedback from the band, TTCBA, when you try to get costumes, some of them are sold out. And again, if you can't use Carl stating that all flights coming to the island is booked as a measure with regards to the increase, I don't know what else to measure it by.
Well, you say increase, but that is a normal occurrence. So in terms of, if you have figure, last year was 5,000, this year is 7, those type of figures you're looking at to show the increase.
As you will appreciate, this season is a little bit early, and of course we would put the figures out into the public domain.
You also mentioned that the children's pan is taking place. I think it was Mr. Kanhai who would have mentioned it in Skinner Park today. There was a great issue with that, so much so now that we seem to have 2 children's pan competition happening, one being done by Trinidad and the other, well, not with Trinidad, the school panorama. Okay. There have been, again, more concerns being raised about the decisions being taken that caused this split. Could you speak to that once more?
Right. Well, first of all, the decision of the location of the various PAN events is not an NCC decision that takes place. What is to take place in Skinner Park is the schools, the Ministry of Education's schools events. What is taking place today at the Queen's Park Savannah is Trinidad's Junior Panorama event. The NCC, nor the ministry, are not involved in those decisions. We provide the facilities and the infrastructure and the support for the stakeholders of the carnival.
And do you have with you now because there was, I want to use the word rift. There was a rift coming out of the school panorama and Trinidad. Does that increase in terms of costing for NCC or Trinidad or the government?
No, it doesn't, because the junior panorama that is taking place today at the Queen's Park Savannah is using the infrastructure that is up there for Carnival. And the Ministry of Education schools panorama that will take place in South will take place using the same infrastructure that will be put down there for Calypso Fiesta and Chutney Soca Monarch finals. By the way, I don't think we mentioned that the promoters of the Chutney Soca Monarch took a decision after visiting the Flavor Village that they will move the semi-finals of Chutney Soca Monarch to the Flavor Village in Port of Spain. But there's no additional infrastructure or cost to the National Carnival Commission. It is infrastructure that we put up anyhow.
And prize money is nothing of the sort would be, now you more or less have to double it or split what you're planning to give in two?
No, but those are competitions that happen all the time.
Now, since I have you here and we're doing for television as well, could you just give us some update in terms of the plans for Baron for television? I know a release will be coming, but I'm assuming you have the information now. If you could present that.
Right. As you can see, in the room, his wife, Ms. Shoma, is here. Some investigation from my office and my mediation department would have happened, and of course my secretariat. I am in talks with regards to Tuko, and we intend to present him with monetary value to, of course, to help out with his medical bills. I'm sad to announce that he is or was placed in a home, so the funds that is going to be given to him, of course, is to help with regards to his upkeep and, of course, his medical bills and medication.
You also mentioned going forward that you would want Tuko, I think you mentioned, in how they treat with their staff, for want of a better term. What has been that development? What is that development?
I should say that has been an ongoing conversation with regards to whether it should be an insurance policy or a grant. As I can't instruct the members of TUCO, but what I could do is have a conversation with my chair with regards to NCC, and whatever restructuring we put in place going forward, that has to be part of the policy coming out from the board and of TUCO and the ministry, that we have to take care of our legends.
And could you give the figure that you'll be giving to Baron and his family?
That I promise you before the end of today you would see, and it is, as I said, it is in no way to deal with the situation. And apart from Mr. Baron, we do have other artists that we do have to tend to.
Okay, so is it now that the government going forward may be looking at establishing a fund that future Calypsonians, because I recall something similar happening with the Mighty Sparrow some years ago, where he needed funding and the state would have stepped in. Is that something on the books right now?
It is, and it's conversations happening in different rooms. We just have to come together holistically and set a policy in place, and of course take it to cabinet and set it. So after the cabinet decision, you will get that in a press release or in a postcard.
Excuse me, we have another question. Yeah.
Thanks, Minister. Kevin John, TTT News. Minister, I know you said with the response from the Flavor Village, you all are considering keeping it. Based on the other new initiatives you all would have offered thus far, can you tell us if there are any plans to keep any of the new measures you all have in place as well? And also with the Flavor Village, how soon can the public know whether or not you all will be keeping it?
I could tell you that conversation started even before the Flavor Village was built, because I was mandated by the Prime Minister to have a meeting with regards to the cruise ship persons association, I should say, and that is with regards to our Carnival 365. And as the chairman rightfully said, when persons come to Trinidad and Tobago, where do you carry them? So, of course, the Carnival Village has been in conversation, and that is where the Flavor Village was born. And of course, it is a conversation that we are trying to solidify so that persons would know the intent. So in the not so distant future, that will be known.
Ministers, good day. Jesse Joseph, 10 Point Solutions Limited. Carnival is the greatest cultural product that Trinidad and Tobago exports, yet it relies heavily on state support. Are there any plans to make Carnival economically stable for the future?
I could tell you from the start of my ministerial term and all the meetings and the stakeholders' conversation, that is where it is pointing. That is our intent. And of course, you will learn of those plans, because there are some restructuring in the not so distant future that again would be announced that would put us on that track.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for
This-
Minister Sturge?
This question is directed to the Minister of Defense.
Just one. I have one more question for Benjamin. Before we look at the system. Yeah, with regards to the whole rift for the school, any additional funding for transportation for these schools heading to San Fernando with regards to the steel pan competition going on today?
I will answer that question in light of this. What you would notice is a one government approach. So should my colleague in education need transport assistance, I am sure that you would have reached out to my colleague in transport with regards to the buses.
I was given the privilege of going first with Mr. Sturge. Minister, how are you doing today? I know you had a long day Friday into yesterday. My first question, you spoke of the SOE and the detention orders in your lead up. There was one particular individual who was held on a detention order who was released, and this particular individual was held because there was plans, or it is alleged that he had planned of assassinating a government minister. What is your thoughts on that?
That's a vague question. What are my thoughts on what?
Yeah, on the SOE was called because of part of it was because of plans to assassinate government and state
My
officials.
thoughts on his release?
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if you
released
follow-
without charge.
Right. That's a bit premature to say that he's not going to be charged. I don't know. What I can say is that a pre-action protocol letter was written, and it was acted upon merely hours before the tribunal gave a recommendation to not release him. So the tribunal, in essence, stated that he ought not to have been released. Additionally, the report in the Newsday, which suggested that there was no evidence in the first place, that has also been proven to be false, because the Commissioner of Police, in essence, refuted that when he came before the National Security Council.
So 2 weeks with it again before the SOE ends, the likelihood that his rearrest is done is there.
His rearrest for the purposes of a PDO can only happen if there is new evidence to prompt that. But the fact that he has been released does not suggest that he can never be charged in the future. Investigations are ongoing. That's all I know.
And the reason I posed the question to you, it was suggested and reported that you were the minister whose life was threatened. So is there further increased security around yourself? Are you feeling somewhat afraid?
I'm not afraid. We all die. We all will get that chance. And if you give me a choice between cancer and an assassination, I'll choose an assassination. So I'm not afraid.
I have a few more.
Okay, Minister, so in light of the recent developments involving our neighboring Venezuela, what measures does the government intend to implement to strengthen the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force and their artillery and their capabilities? A lot of citizens were saying that we don't have any resources, whatnot. What you could add to that?
We are in partnership with the United States government. I don't know if you recall, some seem to forget that it was the Venezuelan defense minister who fired the first salvo stating that he would attack us. Shortly after, our greatest ally, with whom we have a lot in common, and we do not have a lot in common with Venezuela, our greatest ally arrived soon after with a view to policing the waters, and we have benefited from their presence in the waters close by, so that we have been the beneficiary of their protection indirectly. But their presence in the waters have also caused a significant drop in terms of arms and ammunition coming into this country, and in terms of drugs and human trafficking. So that's the second question you asked. His first question was, I can't even remember. I had a long day on Friday. Can you repeat the first part of your question?
The technical training required. Technical training required.
For what?
From the controls that would be in comparison to world standard.
World standard? We have a world standard defense force. The difficulty is, and I'm saying this, I ordinarily would not talk about the state of our military, but Penny Beckles and I can't remember her name, Pandey's daughter, saw it fit to reveal to the world the state of affairs at Cedros and other bases. That did not happen in the last 8 months. In fact, it's passing strange that they both came out to talk about the state of the military only after I had visited those military installations and submitted reports talking about the state of it, reports to the National Security Council and to the Chief of Defense Staff at the time. So that we are in the process of rebuilding. The decline happened over the last 10 years. No uniforms ordered since 2013, and I can go on and on, but a lot of what I have to say, I cannot get into. We were at a place where we are no longer at that place, so I can talk about it. We were at a place where things were being detected by the radar, and to contact persons in Cedros, it had to be done via cell phone. And sometimes cell phone coverage wasn't the best. So we were placed in a position where our naval assets were depleted. We were placed in a position where communication hardware had not been of the best, so that by the time we got to respond, the drug dealers were already on land. We have seen a turnaround in terms of that, and we, with the help of the Americans, since we are strapped of cash, we are in an invidious position. They've been kind enough to help us in terms of upgrading, and very soon the military will have the uniforms, because many soldiers operate on one uniform, which they call a wash and wear. Most of the uniforms are shredded. In fact, I gave pictures to the media so that they can see for themselves. That's not how our military should be run. And I reiterate, the last time we ordered uniforms was 2013. When I went to Tobago, to the installation in Charlottesville, I think it was, or Roxborough, and another installation in Scarborough, there were persons wearing sneakers. There was no uniformity in terms of footwear, in terms of berets, in terms of uniform. Soldiers were buying their uniform from A&H, A&E Tactical, and some getting their blue pants, their dockers from Detour stores and so on, having to dig in their pockets. In fact, we had situations where rations provided to the military, they were adequate, but the rations never reached places like La Romaine and Cedros and so on. It was stolen before it got there. So soldiers who were on call had to dig into their own pockets, pool resources, so that they could buy food. All of that, we have stopped. We've done so quietly. The Ministry of Defense is not one where you can talk, and expose your weaknesses. Anyone who has read The Art of War, and it's clear, Penny Beckles and Ms. Pandey did not. Anyone who has read The Art of War, it states in essence, when you are at your weakest, you don't let your enemy know. You have to appear to be strong. And when you are at your strongest, you let people feel that you are weak. So when they run in, they'll be dealt with. But apparently, these two persons were not patriotic at all. They felt that it was better they let the world know, including the Venezuelans, the state of our military assets. That suggests that neither of them are fit for leadership.
Yep. Question for NCC Chairman Peter Kanhai.
Sure.
Thanks, Mr. Michael Kerr, TTT. Mr. Kanhai, initially there was a pushback, very unfortunate pushback from some members of the community as far as the John Cupid Village. Do you feel somewhat vindicated now based on the success and overwhelming support of the turnout?
Well, first of all, let me say that would have been by a handful of people who could not grasp the concept and the initiative that we were taking that was taking place. But yes, I think the National Carnival Commission can feel very vindicated given the turnout at these venues every night since they were open.
Right. And one thing, do you expect the footage that you got when that pushback took place, do you expect any sort of retraction now from those some people who covered it?
People that behave like that, I don't have much expectation for.
Thank you.
Yes, Johnson.
There's a media report in today's Express.
I saw it.
Huh?
I saw it.
Yes. So I don't need to get into it. So could you respond to that?
Let me respond by saying this. Because the article started off painting a picture. And knowing most persons don't read the entire article, they read the first paragraph, they'll get a certain impression. And they're trying to create the impression that somehow we were involved in the war, in the extraction of Maduro and had advanced notice. The President of the United States himself stated quite clearly that not even members of his own inner circle knew what was going on. John Jeremy is not in that inner circle, neither is the Prime Minister, neither am I. I've never spoken to Mr. Rubio or Mr. Trump. So if they didn't tell the persons in their own circle, how are they going to tell me? How would I know? So when I read the article, it was a bit disappointing because I read the entire article. And it sought to make a claim that they got something from open source, and this open source place, I wrote it down somewhere. Can't remember the name of the site. There's a claim that this site tracks military vehicles and have been correct 100% of the time, saying where these vehicles went and all that. But you know, right in the article, they didn't say. In fact, it says it departed from here, and it didn't say where it went. So if the source is able to track where these aircraft go with regularity and are always 100% correct, then if it did in fact go to Venezuela, they would know and they would say so. Why did the writer stop short of saying so? And what was the purpose? We have aircraft here, military aircraft, that are involved in exercises, day and night training exercises. How do you know where the aircraft went to? That's the first thing. The same open source referred to couldn't tell you where it went. They said the same open source said it's likely that these aircraft were unarmed and did not descend into Caracas to participate in the raid. It went on to speak about Reaper drones were believed to be in our airspace and so on. How do you write an article in a newspaper and say, well, it is believed, and try to convey to the public that X happened or Y happened when you have an open source who can tell you if it did happen or did not happen, and this source did not go to that distance to tell you whether it did. It means that it did not happen. So as far as I'm aware, nobody told me anything about that. As far as I'm aware, well, I shouldn't even be talking. I think you should be asking Mr. Rubio or Mr. Trump or those in the inner circle who knew.
Well, I'll put the same question I was put to the AG. Was our airspace used, or our assets used by the US in the lead up to and involving the extraction of Nicolas Maduro? Was our airport used, our airspace used, any US military assets used coming from Trinidad and Tobago for that operation?
I do not have any such information. And, you know, the media has been sending me questions about these things, and it is clear. Sometimes they said sources and sources when there were no such sources in existence. So that I do not know. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say no, it was not. And the Prime Minister also made the statement clear.
Are any military, U.S. military assets still on the island?
These are the same question. The Prime Minister already said no, we will not.
No, he's
Well,
asking,
is that a different question?
He's asking about military assets.
Are
If
there
you're
any
asking if they
other
are-
U.S. military assets still on the island outside of the normal diplomatic assets in
we
Trinidad?
have continuous training over many years. So at any given time, there are military assets here.
U.S. military, sorry. I want
Yes,
to be
U.S.
specific.
military assets and other assets.
And as far as you aware, any U.S. training exercises ongoing or to be ongoing anytime
These
soon?
things I am not prepared to disclose.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much.
My last question. I actually have a question for you, Mr. Mayhew. At the beginning, you said that this is a government press conference, UNC press
No, a
conference,
UNC press
UNC press conference, where policies are discussed, and that's why it's held here and not, at the Red House or some state building. These policies that may or may not form part of government policies would include members of the government, of course. Would it also include members of the party who are not members of the government?
Yes, the UNC as a party formed a manifesto. We have committees, etc., and our members form the government, and that is government policy. So we live in a democracy in which political parties are central. The UNC is a national organization open to the entire country, the largest organization in Trinidad and Tobago, perhaps the entire English-speaking Caribbean. So the UNC is not dead. We are continuing to play a part in the political democratic process, as is the right and duty of the party.
And do you think it's more prudent for government policies to come through the regular government channels rather than the party channel?
Yeah. No, the UNC forms a government. We were voted in by the majority, and this is how democracy works. Yeah. So, thank you very much. And members of the media, the viewing public, Minister Sturge, Minister Benjamin, and Chairman Peter Kanhai. Thank you for watching, and we will see you at our next